Okay, greetings, BlazeLeeDragon here, and I was recently having a conversation from someone who messaged me on YouTube, and they were asking me about quite a few things. Now, as always, anybody who messages me to get my opinion is welcome to do so, and if you don't want to be mentioned, just say so, and I won't say what your name is. So basically, the general purpose of the conversation, or question, the main questions, and it was pretty long, had to do with basically belief in any sort of religion, and also the thought that in ancient times people felt like they absolutely had to have magic and religion and spirituality, and it's kind of almost been replaced today with modern technology and science. So is our world today, is it needed? And then there was the thought that even though this individual did not necessarily believe in anything, he was questioning and thinking, well, even if I don't believe in anything, I'm afraid of death. I'm afraid of what's going to happen after, so I must want to, so that I at least know what's going to happen to me after I go. And, how you doing, Cuggy? And, my dog, you see him over my right shoulder, and he's playing around in the yard. Anyway, so he was curious what was my opinion in general. And the first thing I want to say is, as far as science replacing religion and magic and spirituality and things like that, I don't really think it has. Obviously, in some countries in the world, yeah, there's Kage. In some countries in the world, especially here in America, technology is more prevalent. There's places across the seas where people still don't really have technology or electricity and things like that, and they could very easily, once again, stick with the religion and magic and things like that very easily. But even here in America, in our modern world of technology and everything like that, I think that we still have room and place for spirituality. But it also depends on what you're looking for in spirituality and religion and magic and things like that. It depends on what you're expecting, what you're looking for. But I think it can very easily follow side by side. And the reason he was saying he felt that science has replaced it is he felt that people were looking for religion and things like that based upon the desire for control, such as praying for the crops to be well this year, or praying for the rain, things like that. So they're praying for the nature to be good for them, good to them too. And now that we have science, we don't need that. We just flip a light switch, we have electricity, things like that. So I think that, once again, depending on what you are seeking, I think that there is still place to honor, to respect the divine in any form, whatever form you believe, whether it be a single god, a single goddess, multiple gods and goddesses, a single god and goddess, just energy, just the universe, just the great divine, whatever, however you want to view it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when it comes to any religion, all faith is blind faith. We don't know. We can tell each other and say we feel it, but what we feel is our interpretation of these feelings. We don't know for certain. I mean, technically, the same thing happens with everything in our world. Even with science, we think something, we feel it, and at least in science, we try to prove it. But then again, something is only a fact until it's proven wrong. There was a time with one of the more obvious things that are extreme where we thought the world was flat. We as a people, not me as an individual or you, but people as, humanity, they were under the impression the world was flat. Science proved it wrong, but at the time it was a scientific fact that the world was flat. And it was a big fear that you would fall off the end. And I think science itself, in my personal opinion, it comes from magic and mysticism. The way that magic and mysticism was used, it was about understanding the world. There's a wonderful series of videos, and I can't remember the guy's name anymore, but he has a YouTube channel here, and he talks about what it means to become a wizard. And in my personal opinion, he nailed it head on, and he talks about being a wizard is being wise, knowledgeable, understanding your world and universe, and that's what it comes down to. If you want to be most proficient at life and existence, you obtain wisdom and knowledge and understanding to the best of your abilities, and you research everything you can, however you can, and, you just kind of go with it. So, I think science and magic, religion, spirituality, side by side in our today's world, definitely in my opinion. As far as doubt and fear and things like that, and not knowing what to believe in or what to seek. That is completely and utterly normal. I don't know anybody who doesn't have doubt at some point in their life. And especially in our society, most of us are raised monotheistic. Catholicism, Protestantism, Jewish, so I don't know if that's Judaism. Don't know the proper term for that. Most of us are raised in one of those faiths. Most of us, not all of us. And many of us who find the polytheistic recreation of the old religions, because it's not the old religion, it's a recreation, it's a revival, are not finding what they're looking for, so they seek elsewhere. So they had doubt. Many people have doubt, and they stay with their original religion. But yes, doubt is a normal thing, because once again, we're going off of what people are telling us, or our own experiences in the world. You know, so by going off of our own experiences, what if we interpreted it wrong? What if we were told by someone who had no idea what they were talking about? There's plenty of room for So that's okay, that's normal. And that's part of life, in my opinion, you know, finding your own path, finding what works for you, finding what you personally believe in. And then as far as the whole being afraid of death, everyone's afraid of death. But my thing is this to you. If you believe, let's cut out the belief part, because obviously there's multiple belief parts. Let's say it's true. You die and you get to heaven or hell. And that's the truth. That's all there is to it. Or even if you have a purgatory between, you get to heaven or hell, ultimately, and that's the end. That's the end-all, be-all existence done. If that's the truth, and you don't believe in a monotheistic God, and you don't believe in that, it's still going to end up happening. Now, that's very scary to thought of going to hell and being damned. So in my personal opinion, I'm of a mind to say, well, if there's only one single deity, and he's that cruel and twisted to throw me for not understanding, for being an idiot, lack of a better word, then it's like, personally, I think I'd rather burn than be stuck with this person or being or existence. That's just my interpretation, and that might piss some people off, but hey, you know, it's my personal interpretation. Now let's say we're right with the polytheists, and there's multiple gods and goddesses, and there are multiple versions of places that you can go, you know, whether, you know, you're going to Valhalla, you know, or, you know, wherever you're going, the Summerland, there are multiple places that you can go. And that path, and you can also be reincarnated, and there's ones that you can be reincarnated without necessarily going to a specific place. We don't know where you go. And then, of course, being born into the other world, dying there and being born into this world. On all those loop paths, if you don't believe, it's going to happen anyway, so it doesn't harm you to not believe in the wrong thing, or even be a monotheist. None of that is going to harm you, so you're good to go. Now, let's say, and there's probably other theories as far as what happens when we die. Now, let's say when you die, you cease to exist. You're gone. And that seems to be the biggest fear for people. Doesn't matter, because once you're dead and gone, you're not there to suffer or experience the, oh no, I don't exist. You don't exist, it's gone, it doesn't matter. So enjoy life while you have it. Do what you can. Have a meaningful life. Do something that makes you feel alive and right. And just be, you know? I mean, look at this world we live in. This is my backyard. I love this. I mean, it's very peaceful back here when I don't have kids running around the neighborhood screaming and trespassing and breaking stuff, which luckily is not that often. But right now, it's in the morning, it's nice and cool, beautiful weather, you got birds singing, trees blowing, and I can just be and just exist. And once again, my own personal interpretation of the divine, I can be out here and experience it and believe what I am experiencing, and not so much about what I'm being told. There are arguments and wars and things started over religion and faiths and terminology. You know, I'll post some videos and I'll share my opinion. I've had a few lately where we've had arguments on the way I'm using terms and whether or not they're accurate, and ultimately at the end of the day, I have no idea if anything I say is accurate. And that's why I'm telling you guys, usually it's my opinion and my interpretation, and I'll tell you these are my thoughts. It doesn't make them right, but then again, you can have, you know, I'll just throw out Hinduism as an example, because there's a couple arguments on that video too. Every single Hindu I've talked to, born and raised Hindu, actual Indian, from India, or even, you know, immigrated over, just conversations in person, people I've worked with, every individual I talk to has a completely different interpretation. It's like there's almost like there are different sects within Hinduism. And, I mean, everything from the way that the gods are, and if there are multiple gods, and if there are one god, if there's only a single god, or if it's multiple gods that are one god, and there's different interpretations of the meanings, or there's specifically different deities, just just the deity and the divine itself, there's an argument from each one that I talk to, or following the Vedas, if I'm saying it correctly. Following the Vedas and what's accurate, or their history and where it comes from. Every single one of them seems to have a different interpretation based upon a certain sect. So if you talk to people of one temple, most of them agree on the same thing. But if you go over to a different temple, I mean, it's like almost like two different faiths completely. It's almost like the Catholics and the Protestants and their argument about the Bible being taken literally and interpretation, and which Bible's right and which one's not. And there's just so much conflict, and I think we're missing the point when we start arguing and bumping heads. You know, and then there's like using terms like, especially in the polytheistic world, it's like most of that stuff is dead and gone. It was snuffed out. It was killed out. So a lot of it doesn't exist. Some of it may have survived. I never met anyone who can specifically trace back a few hundred years. So for the ones that I've talked to, we're part of a revival movement, which is, everyone's like, oh, well, that's not accurate historically. Who cares? We don't know what was historically, because those who live get to write the histories. So if a particular path was snuffed out and killed and it was not kept alive and records were not kept, we no longer have it. We have hearsay that has been passed down through stories. So a lot of people who are pulled to that mindset are trying to revive it. And even if they're not reviving it 100% accurately, take Druidry, for example. The ancient Druids sacrificed animals and human beings. The Druids of today, the Neo-Druids, the modern Druids, the modern practitioners, or people who even incorporate Druidry, whether you're talking about, you know, the ones that do it spiritually, like the ones from England, or the ones here in America who have it as a religion, do not do that. That is wrong in their faith. But they still use a name of individuals that used to do that. They're not the ancient Druids, they're the modern Druids, because they took the idea, the concept, and what was left of the lore and the stories and history that has been inbred into our society, and revived it and made it something new. So to argue with them, well, that's not accurate, it is now. What was is no longer, so now we're making something new. So people get so wrapped up in this, and then they get arguments, and it's because of these interpretations and because of these versions, people are being pulled away or pushed away from their faith, pulled and pushed, forced, and just, you know, let it go. Just be. You know, look at, like, once again, this wonderful world we live in. Experience it and love it. That is my advice. That is my interpretation. These are my thoughts of this individual who came to me and asked, you know, as far as does he need to believe in anything, and feeling like science replaced things. You know, no, I don't think science replaced things. I think it is up to the individual. If science has replaced it for you, that is fine. You must choose what is right for you. To doubt, to wonder, to be concerned is completely natural and normal, no matter what religion or faith that you go into. If you go into something like Buddhism or Taoism or things like that, many of the scholarly individuals will tell you that you want to question. It is the question that is the way of seeking truth. You know, if you go into stuff like Druidry, or, you know, just some of the polytheistic faiths, or, you know, they encourage you and invite you to discover and to seek and to find your own path. If you look into stuff like Asatru, it's about like living and about representing. It's not everything is divine and spiritual. You live, you accept your life, and by living, you're honoring, you know, the gods. And if you look at something like, even like with like just any of the faiths, it's about being, just be. So that's my thoughts. That's my interpretation. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. Even with like in Catholicism, they tell you a story about how Jesus had doubts. And I believe the story had to do with how Jesus was confronted by, I believe, Satan, and he was trying to offer him everything he sees before him or something like that. And he denied him 3 times. But by offering him these things, he was tempted each time. You know, having doubts and having temptations, and that's normal. It's part of being a person. The key is to overcome it and to choose. But in order to choose, you must decide. I think you must decide for yourself. So, BlazeLeeDragon. My thoughts, my interpretations. Accurate, wrong, I try. I read. I talk to others. Forums, chats, tons of books, articles online, Google searches, Wikipedias, encyclopedias, dictionaries, etymologies, all sorts of things. I do my best, but you know what? I'm just a person researching and looking in the world, trying to find my place and offering it to those who wish to hear it, my interpretation of the world. So I encourage you to do the same. It works for me. I like it. I don't think you have to. Don't think I'm 100% right. But I offer it to you. Look, search, research, talk to others. Don't take my word for anything. Ever. If it inspires you, it makes you feel good, or hey, that feels right, that sounds right, go with it and take it somewhere. Don't just take it as is and leave it, put it up on an altar. No, take it, run with it, research with it. So, yeah, 15-minute video. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask me in Kage. So, anyway.